Today, as you can see, our today's topic is population and sampling. As I say that this topic is relating to the data collection, specifically the primary data. When you'll be collecting the primary data for this research management report, then you need to consider which will be your population and how many sample you will be drawing or collecting from the population. So population, what does it mean? Actually, the population does mean the total object or entire object or subject in your research. Okay, so entire subject or object or entire say concerned people in your research. Okay, now here, as I was talking about population, so can any of you give me one example of population relating to your research project? For example, okay, I'm giving you the answer. When you'll be collecting data relating to, say, international students studying in Australia, they will be the population. So international students, you are doing a research on international students in Australia. So there will be the population. So the population is total number of international students currently studying in Australia will be the population. Or for example, we'll be collecting data on bank managers. Okay. So bank managers, total number of bank managers in Australia will be the population related to our research. Or we'll be collecting data from, say, for example, mining employees. Okay, so total number of mining employees currently working in the mining sites in different mining company in Australia will be the population. Now, sample. So sample will be a specific number from that population. We'll be drawing the sample from the population. So sample will be a smaller part of the population because we can't get the data from all of the population. It will be really time consuming and it will be really big effort will be required for that. To avoid those time and also big effort, or we need many data collector, plenty of data collector we need. So we need huge amount of time, big number of data collector, and also big effort. Therefore, to avoid those dilemmas, we will be collecting data from some of the population, which is sample. And while we will be drawing the sample, we must need to look at the representation of the population. Our sample will be very representative of the population. What do I mean? I meant that if we are going to collect data from international students and all the international students are coming from KY, say our sample size is 200, okay, or 500. Now all 500 sample are coming from KY, then it will not be a very representative sampling, okay, because they are coming from one institute or they are coming from all from one specific country. It is not also very representative because one country doesn't represent all other countries' international students in Australia. One institute doesn't represent entire universities and institutions in Australia. Or even if we collect data all from Sydney, it will not be a very good representation. If we collect data all from NSW, it will not be representing entire Australia. If we collect all data from postgraduate students, it is not a very good representation. Therefore, to make our sampling very representative, okay, we need to collect data from different states in Australia, different big cities in Australia, different universities and institutions, different levels of study, for example, undergraduate, postgraduate, diploma, certificate 3. We also need to collect data from different programs such as business, IT, engineering, health science, mathematics, law, okay, arts. We need to also collect data from different cultural background students or from different cultural, different, different country-based students. Okay. Now let's start. Here, the population of the study. As I mentioned, that population of a study is all the individuals, items, or units relevant to the study. So the population can be different for different study. Okay, so sometimes it can be individual, sometimes it can be items, sometimes it can be units relevant to your research or relevant to your thesis, relevant to your study, okay, or relevant to your title. For example, sometimes the population can be, as I said, international students, sometimes it can be bank managers, sometimes it can be mining employees, sometimes it can be customer, okay, and sometimes it can be combination of some of them. Population can be comprised of individuals, group, organizations, document, campaigns, incidents, and so on. So even the population sometimes can be organizations, such as the population can be, say, we are collecting data from different universities, and say curriculum, universities reputation, universities system. So the organization or the university or institution can be the population. Sometimes it can be bank. Okay, sometimes it can be, say, the shops, okay, such as hospitality or fast food shop. Okay, and sometimes it can be accident. So how many accidents take places in the mining company, in different mining company, in different places or different countries. Okay, so the accident rate, incident, or so, such as say bullying. Okay, so it can be the population event. So the population of the research is also called the universe. So as the term universe implies, the population of a study is comprised of all the units or individuals belongs to the population. So it is universe. Okay. Example of research population. As I said, the researcher might decide to compare levels of disposable income among Australian and non-Australian undergraduate students at King's Own Institute, okay, or among undergraduate students at King's Own Institute, or among undergraduate students at university in Australia. So when we are collecting data, say for example our research on KY only as a case study, then our population will be all undergraduate students at KY. Okay, if it is a case study on KOI, we are not looking at other university or other states, other university, other institution. Or it can be, you can see, among undergraduate students at university in Australia. So all the undergraduate students studying in different universities in Australia will be our population.
So my question is, while doing this, like you said, we have to have a German answer from the student. So how we have to do is like we have to make a sample question the way we get from our university, like how is the service, how is the like this, and we have to send that. We have to get a response, like a real response.
Yeah.
How many response do we?
I will be discussing that one. So you are asking about the sample size.
Sample size.
Yeah, and also you are asking about
How
the
many questions?
data.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be discussing that one later.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Will you give the question by yourself, or do we can
You need to have your own
own
question.
question?
Yeah.
But what if the question match with other student? We will get
No,
similarities,
there
no?
will be no similarity from the question. Because question you are not putting the question in your thesis. You'll be bringing the data only.
Only the
Not the-
data?
yeah.
Okay. And or maybe like a question and answer that data, we can do the presentation of that.
You will be presenting only the data analysis.
Only
Yeah, it's not the question.
not a question.
So the researcher may decide to focus on the population of undergraduate in Australia, Australian college and universities, or the population of undergraduate in the KOI, or in Macquarie University or University of Technology Sydney. So when we will be deciding our population, it's a good idea if it is, say, for example, entire Australia, then our population will be coming from entire Australia. But as I said, for example, our topic is, say, job prospect for international graduates, then semicolon, dot, a case study of KOI graduate. Then we will be collecting data only from KOI because we are having the case study only at KOI. In this case, our population will be coming from KOI. All, say for example, at this moment, there are about 6,000 students at KOI. Okay, about. So all these 6,000 students will be the population. But when we are having the research title like that, say the job prospect of international graduates in Australian university, or graduated from Australian university or Australian higher education institute. Okay, then all the graduates, for example, it is 500,000. So all these 500,000 graduates will be our population. Okay. So population will be depending on, sometimes it can be only KY, sometimes it can be depending on different universities and institutions in the entire country, depending on your topic. Question of scope. So the researcher defines the population of the study precisely in order to ensure that the research project is doable, in order to ensure that it is researchable. Okay, so now when we will be having the population, if our population is coming from entire world, universe, then sometimes it will not be doable. Okay, unless you are doing a professional research. If it is academic research, it is not doable. Academic research. So when we are doing academic research, we do not have that many data collectors, and also we do not have that many budgets. But if it is a professional research or industry-based research, then it may be doable. For example, say Toyota company, they are conducting a research, or Google, or Apple, Samsung, they are conducting their research, and they have a huge budget, and also they have many data collectors and many companies, many offices around the globe, around the world. So it's easy for them to collect the data. But for us, it may not be possible. Yeah.
The screen share is not updated. There's still a confusion.
So everybody, you can see the screen. Online student. Natalia, can you see the screen? Yeah.
Yeah, I can see. Thank you.
So we were saying that the questions of scope relating to the population, so that researcher can only do what is possible to do, and so that researchers limit the scope of the research. So the scope of the research is depending on the researcher's ability, the manpower or data collector or assistant. Okay. Sometimes we do comparison, say job or employability, okay, of the graduates between Australia and Netherlands, for example, or Canada or New Zealand. So it may be possible, but when you are doing something very huge, it may not be possible. So the resources necessary in order to ensure that the researcher's project is researchable include the amount of time available for the research, the amount of money required to conduct the research, and the level of access to the necessary data available to the research. So these three factors will be determining the scope of your population or of your research. Okay, on what you will be doing your research. First one is, as I said, the time. Okay, sometimes it takes huge amount of time to collect the data. In this case, we need to rethink about the scope of our population or on what we will be doing our research. Another one is fund or money. Many times you need to go to the site. For example, if it is multi-country, you need to fly, you need to collect data, we need to stay at hotel, all these things. So another one is the access. Okay. Sometimes it's hard for us to pass the entry or to get the access to the respondent, specifically if it is CEO or managers or government officials or political leaders. Okay, in this case, there are some issues related to the access. For example, some research are on at university vice chancellor. Okay, so there are about 45 universities in Australia, and all the universities vice chancellor will be your population. In this case, probably you are going to collect data from, say, 20 universities vice chancellor. Okay, because the population is small. So, but there can be a issue related to the gate pass or related to the access to those vice chancellor. Therefore, when we will be doing our research, specifically the real research, real academic research, then while we'll be thinking about the scope, then we need to consider all these three factors. In designing the research project, the researcher might decide, for example, to suited the research in one university or in more than one university. The student might choose to situate the research in one business school or faculty with a particular university or college, or in more than one business school or faculty. So it may suit with us if we specifically for the student research, not very much academic research, but student research, then probably one university or few business college schools, it can be viable or researchable or doable. Now, samples and sampling in research. Already I discussed a little bit about the sample. Okay, so sample, when we will be drawing the sample, first thing we need to consider that the sample must be representative. For example, I told that our research is on international students or international graduates. Now, when we will be collecting the data or when we will be thinking about the sample, if all of our sample are male, then it is not completed or not a good sample. we need to collect data from both male and female students or graduates. Okay. Another thing is, I also told that when we will be collecting or thinking about the sample, then it will be covering almost every state, at least big 4 or 5 states, such as NSW, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia, and Western Australia. So all these 5 big states. We will be also covering both university and institution. Okay, we will be covering also again the different levels of study. As I said, undergraduate, postgraduate, research, degree, diploma, certificate, BEd programs, all this. We'll be also looking at the background of the students, their country of origin. We'll be also looking at the, if we collect all the data from MBA students, okay, we are collecting 500 data and all from MBA student. Probably not a very good choice or not a very good sampling. Okay, so we will be trying to cover different area of study. Area of study will be from different areas. So here in social science research, which is our business research, in business research we say the social science research. It is often case that the entire population of the research is too big, and as a result, beyond the scope of the researcher. So what we need to do, as our population is too big, so we need to collect the data from a part of the population. The part of the population. In such situations, the researcher clearly define the population of the research and then select from that population a sample to the study. So the sample of the population, we need to think about that. We will be collecting data from part of the population, which is entire population. Okay. The proposed research is then carried out on or with the sample instead of the entire population. Entire population may not be possible. It is not doable. It is not researchable. Okay, and it is beyond the capacity of the researcher. Therefore, we need to go ahead. We need to do our research. We need to carry out our research with the sample. Okay. Some research is carried out using entire populations, and some is carried out using sample population or sample of the population. Samples of the population. So, as I said, for example, your population is 45 universities vice chancellor or 50 universities vice chancellor. It may be possible for you to go with entire population because it is only 55. Okay. But if it is not 55, it is 55,000 or 550,000. Okay. Or it is 5 million, or say 50 billion or 3 billion. Okay. In this case, we can't go for 5 million or 50 million or 3 billion. Okay. In this case, we need to go with some part, which is the sample. Though the actually there is no figure. Actually, figure is missing. I tried to have the figure, but figure is not here. My apology. Next time I'll be trying to have the figure. So in a here there was a figure. For example, in the population it shows, say for example, 1y, another one is 2y. Another one is 3y, another one is 4y, another one is 5y, another one is 6y. Okay, so this is the total population. In the total population, say there are 21y. Okay, there are 17 2y, there are 39 3y. Okay, there are say 45 4y. There are 37 5y. Okay. So this is the combination of our total population. Now, when you will be drawing your sample, what you can do, what you should do. My question, this is my question to everyone. I said that in your population, say for example, our population is 39,000, and in 39,000, there are different characteristics of the population or different features of the population. Some of the features, they are single. Some of the population, they are double. Some of the population, they have three. Say, for example, I said 3y, okay, 4y, 5y, 6y. Now, how you will be drawing your population? How you will be drawing your sample from this population, from this different population? This is my question. No one is answering my question. Any of you? Okay. Very easy question I asked you, and I'm surprised that none of you are giving me the answer. In this case, we will be selecting our sample from this population, picking some 1y, some 2y's, some 3y's, some 4y's, and some 5y's. So, for example, we have population with single, unmarried, for example, just an example, unmarried people. Okay. We have just couple, husband and wife. We have family with one kid, 3y. We have 2 kids, okay, so 4y. Family with 2 kids, family with 3 kids, 5y. Or family with 4 kids, 6y. Now, when we will be collecting data, we need to have from all different variety of our population. Otherwise, it will not be representing. If we only collect data from 3 different y, other 3 different y's are excluding, it will not be a good representing sample, because your sample doesn't represent 3 different y's. You have your sample only represent 50% of the population. Other 50% of the population is missing. It is not a good sampling technique or consideration or drawing. Okay, so when we'll be drawing the sample from our population, we'll be trying to cover every characteristics or almost most of the characteristics from our population. This is the message. Issue of representation. Now, I'm giving you some time to look at this slide and try to find me the issue. Why we want to make it representation? So representation is a characteristics or is a criteria we need to meet. Representation is a criteria we need to meet. We need to comply with. We need to satisfy. If our sample is less representative, it is bad. If our sample is purely representative or representative in a very standard way, it is good. So, if our sample is, as I said, poorly representative, then we say there is an issue of representation. Okay, it is not a good idea to have some issue or poor representation. Now, find me some of the some of the issues of representation from this slide. At least one issue of representation. Find me at least one.
In this question,
Yeah, in this slide, from this slide. Okay.
and is it in that short paragraph
Third paragraph. Yep.
describing the sampling method? The researcher need to establish how to present the representative. Is it?
Okay. Here, first thing is the issue can be if we do not clearly describe the sample. Now we must need to clearly describe the sample. The researcher must clearly describe the sample. Who are our sample? Okay. Who are our sample? This sample is, say, male student, female student, and the sample is from 30 different countries. Student sample are from different level of study, different area of study. Okay, and also the researcher must need to explain why that sample was selected. Okay, so this is another. If it is not described, then it is an issue. And also sampling method. What are the sampling method we used? Is it simple random sampling? Is it stratified sampling? Is it total sampling? Okay. Is it convenience sampling? Is it judgmental sampling? Which sampling method we used? If it is not, then it is an issue. Okay. And also means by which the sample was selected. So if we do not also describe or explain the means or way the sample was selected, then there will be an issue. So we can see the issue can come from different area. If we do not clearly describe the sample, then there can be an issue. And why that sample was selected, if we do not explain that one, then it can be an issue. If we do not mention the sampling method and sampling way or means, then also it can be an issue. So the issue can come from these areas. exclusion and inclusion criteria. Okay. Once again, this is the another slide I'm giving you for your consideration. Online student, none of you are responding, so I am really asking you, please look at this. Very easy to understand, and also you need to consider that one in your own research. Okay. Today is end of week 9. I mean, not end, sorry. Midway of week 9. And I will be discussing about your progress related to the data collection. Okay. So you will be presenting me, you will be discussing me from your own group that how you are going with your data collection. So when you will be collecting the data, you need to have some inclusion and exclusion criteria. So you need to understand that. So everyone, please try to understand what do we mean by inclusion and what do we mean by exclusion. Will we be excluding some of our population? Okay, and whom we will be including in our sample. So this is the thing you need to understand. Thank you. Okay, now from online student, can any of you please tell me inclusion and exclusion?
I think they have the slides.
Yeah, they can see. Priyanka, can you see the screen?
Yes, Dr. Ghazi.
Yeah. Who wants to say Akash? Can you please tell exclusion and inclusion? Any of that? What do you understand from it? Inclusion and exclusion. Akash, Deep?
Yes, sir. Give me a second. So inclusion criteria basically means the participants, when we take the participants for the interview questions and all of that, the criteria needs to be met. And exclusion criteria, if the criteria does not meet, in the exclusion criteria, the participants will be excluded from the research.
Yeah, thank you. Right. So, as you can see, inclusion and exclusion The inclusion criteria are the criteria potential participant must meet in order to be included in the study. So the criteria, for example, we will be collecting data from higher degree international graduates. Higher degree international graduates. Okay. Now, there is international students who are studying at school. There are many boarding schools in Sydney. In Australia, there are hundreds of boarding schools. And in those boarding schools, there are heaps of international students. Will we be collecting data from them? Yes or no? No, because they are not higher degree students. They are school students. So they will be excluding because they are not meeting the criteria. So they are not meeting the criteria of our research, of our study. Therefore, they will be excluding. Okay, so potential participant must meet the criteria to be included in our research as the participant, as the sample, as the interviewees. Okay. Or let me give you another example.
So the Dr. Gaji, domestic student will be in a exclusion criteria, right?
Right. Thank you. That's right. So domestic students also will be excluded, though they are at university, though they are at higher level studying, they will be also excluded. Okay. Or
Like-
for example, yeah. Thank you.
Do
Right.
we have an age limit on this one? And
No, sometime we do age limit. Sometime, for example, we want to collect data from bank managers who have been working as a manager for last 5 years. Okay. So, though you are a bank manager, but you are working for last 2 years, so you will be excluded from our research. I'm saying again, we want to collect data from the bank managers in Australia who have been working as a bank manager position for last 5 years. So the excluding criteria will be, though you are a bank manager, but we are sorry, we can't include you in our research because your job length is only 2 years. Okay. Now, there is a question, why we want to collect data from the manager who have been working for last 5 years? Do you know why? Because we want to get the depth knowledge. So the bank manager who have been working less than 5 years, they may not be able to answer our question. Okay, we have some question where it requires some depth of knowledge or the organizational factor. Okay. So the senior manager who have been working as a manager position for last 5 years, they can give the answer only, not the junior managers. Therefore, we want to include or exclude. Okay, thank you. I think many of you or all of you understood. So when you will be collecting the data, you also need to include and exclude based on your criteria. Okay. Sampling frame. The basic rule of, so there are, did we discuss about this sampling frame previously? Probability sampling, simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling. Did we discuss that one? Can you remember? No? Okay. So now from our population, it's a question about the sampling. Okay. So when you will be drawing your sample, then there can be different way to have the sample. One is probability sampling, another one is non-probability sampling. These are the two main ways, probability and non-probability. What does probability mean? So probability does mean, can you hear me? I can see my camera is turning off. I don't know why. Anyway, if it is completely off, I will be again log on. Downloading. Okay. So I said that there are two main sampling methods. One is probability, another one is non-probability. And also probability sampling got specific techniques such as simple random sampling, okay, or stratified sampling. And also non-probability got some specific techniques, sampling techniques. Probability, from the name you can understand that when the population, every population has the possibility or probability to be the sample, then it is probability sampling. I'm saying again, when every population has the possibility to be drawn as a sample, it is probability sampling. For example, we will be collecting data from international graduates. Any of the graduates out of 600,000 or 500,000, any of the graduates can be our sample. They have the probability. But non-probability sampling, no. Not all population has the equal chance to be the sample. No. Not every population has the chance to be the sample. It is not when there is not equal chances or there is equal possibility to be drawn or to be selected as a sample, that it is non-probability. When there is no, but when there is, then it is probability. Okay. Now look at the types of probability sampling. So here, sampling frame. Okay. A sampling frame is the list of elements from which a sample may be drawn, also called working population. For example, sampling list, sampling frame. Okay. Say for example, we want bank managers. This is one of the elements. 5 years job experience, another element. Working in commercial bank, another element. Working in Australia, another element. Okay. And working as a senior manager. So these are the 5 elements. It is called sampling frame. Probability sampling already I discussed about. Okay. Using probability sampling, the sample selected from the population is claimed by the researcher to be representative of the population. It is of fundamental importance that samples selected by the representative of the population of the study. So it is one of the fundamental requirements that the sample we are going to select, they must be representing the population. Okay. It must be representative. So the researcher using a probability sampling technique wants to claim that the findings of the research conducted with the sample are generalizable to the entire population of the study. For example, we are conducting a research on the employability of the international graduates, and we collect data from all KY students, and we are saying to be employed in Australian workforce, you need to have this quality, okay, or this skill. But it may not be representative because you collected data only from KY. Okay. It may not be representative. The international graduates from other university and other states and other program, they said, oh, this is not right. It doesn't reflect us because you collected data only from KY graduates. Therefore, when we will be collecting data, and also the results of our research findings means the results of our research, it must be generalizable to the entire population of the study. If it is very narrow, if it is very non-generalizable, okay, then we can't make the claim that this is the situation for every international graduates in Australia. So probability sampling is based on the theories of mathematics of probability. Okay, so the mathematics of probability is equal chances. Okay, so probability sampling technique includes simple random sampling, stratified sampling, systematic sampling, and class sampling. If used properly, probability sampling techniques yield precise result while working with a sample of fraction the size of the original population of research. So there are 4 different techniques of probability sampling. As you can see, once again, simple random sampling. Second one, stratified sampling. Third one, systematic sampling, and fourth one, cluster sampling. So these are the 4 specific techniques under probability sampling. So let's start with simple random sampling. Simple random sampling involves selecting a sample at a random from sampling frame. Randomly, you are picking anyone you want. Okay. So this is a simple random sampling. You can pick anyone. Now, when you will be selecting or using simple random sampling, when your population are homogeneous, all are same, there is no difference of your population, then you will be using simple random sampling. I'm saying again, when our population are homogeneous, it means almost everyone got the same characteristics and not that much differences. Then we will be applying using simple random sampling technique. For example, we want to collect data from international graduates. Now, international graduates in Australia, they have almost same characteristics, everyone. They do not have that much differences in terms of employability or knowledge or Australian education system or IELTS or English proficiency. Okay, so anyone can work. It is not someone that you got this knowledge, you got that knowledge. We do not need that one. There can be some differences in their academic performance or in their English proficiency, but we are not going to compare that. We are not going to compare your English proficiency. This is not our research objective. This is not our research question. Okay, our research question is the employability. So, simple random sampling is selected. Okay, say here, let us say that you want to study the population of your class, and there are 30 students in your class. Okay, so you want to draw the sample from this 30 population, and you want to select, for example, 10. So any 10 from your class can be drawn, and it can be a simple random sampling. As it is simple thing to get complete list of the name of the students in your class, which is a sampling frame, it is possible to engage in simple random sampling technique with this population 30. Okay. The first thing is to make a list on a sheet paper of all of the names of the people in your class, 30 students. Then tier of each name one by one. Then place each of them into a hat or in a box. Then select one name at a time. You are now engaging the simple random sampling. So drawing like the lottery, simple and randomly. Okay. Once again, when the population they have about equal characteristics or they have homogeneity, then we can apply this simple random sampling technique. Which one is the most widely used sampling technique? Most widely used and very popular. Systematic sampling technique. We will be applying some system in drawing the, still it is random sampling, probability sampling. Still this one is a probability sampling. But rather than random, we will be using a system. What is the system? For example, okay, say regular interval from the sampling frame. We are going to collect data from 300 students in my class. Now I am going to collect data 1, 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th. So every 10 students. Okay, every 10th number of students I am going to collect data from. Or for example, we are going to say, suppose there are 500 houses in the state and you begin at a random starting point and then sample every third house or every fifth house or whatever interval of house you decided on until you complete your sample. So, for example, in your suburb, first you are entering in a road and you are going to the first house, then third house, then sixth house, then ninth house, then 12th house, and likewise. Finish that road, go to the next road. You are going to collect data for the marketing purpose. Okay, for example, say you are going to collect data relating to the product loyalty, okay, or the price of the product or customer satisfaction from that suburb or from that city or from that state. Okay, so systematic sampling. We are applying a system, and that system is the equal number of interval, equal number of gap we are applying. Okay, still this one is a probability sampling. Every house have the probability or chances to be the sample in our study. Therefore, we are saying it is a probability sampling. A stratified sampling. Okay. So a stratified sampling is a sample selected based on some known characteristics of the population. A characteristics which will have an impact on your research. Known characteristics. Okay. And that is in our research. So still it is probability sampling, but we are not having that one simple random sampling, or we are not using system. We are using some characteristics of the population. Okay. And that characteristics related to our research. For example, we are collecting data from the bank employees or bank managers, okay, who have been using MyOp software or Zero software, okay, in last 3 years. So bank managers who have been using a specific software, we will be collecting data from that manager or that employee. So not every year our inclusion criteria is using MyOp software, MYOB, you may heard about, or Zero, XE, RO, okay, zero software. Okay,
It's made for the payslip.
so the bank managers or bank employee who have been using that software for last 3 years, we will be selecting them. So inclusion criteria. The other bank managers who have not been using any software, they will be excluded. Or even who are not using either MIOP or Zero, they will be excluding. So this is a stratified sampling. In our sampling, we have some characteristics, and in our research, it is relevant. We want to look at in our research that whether MIOP or Zero software improved the performance of the bank managers. It is relevant to our research because in our research we want to examine or we want to investigate whether the impact of MIOP or Zero software on the bank managers' performance. So when we will be selecting our sample, we must need to select those bank managers who have been using either of these software. Therefore, we are saying it does have an impact on our research. Okay, and the known characteristics, some known characteristics of the population is using that software for last 3 years. See the example, one example, a study of religious practice among your classmates. For a simple and good explanation of these sampling methods. In the example, the researcher uses first a simple random sampling technique, then a systematic sampling technique, before finally decide that stratified sampling technique is really required for this particular study with this particular population. So here, a study of religious practice among your classmates. Now, you will be looking at who are my classmates who have regular religious practices. We need to include that. So the known characteristics is, I know this student, that student, they are doing some practices, religious practices, and those students, they are not caring about religious practices. So I will not be including them. I will be only going to those classmates who have been using. So it is the stratified sampling technique. Yeah. So simple random sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified sampling. We discussed all them. Now I'm moving to non-probability sampling. In non-probability sampling, the sample is selected to represent the population, but it cannot be said to be representative of the population. If any, in a statistical sense, that is, in non-probability sampling, your sample may not be representative, because you are not randomly selecting everyone. It is some specific purpose. So, therefore, non-probability sampling is not always very good because it is not representative in the statistical sense. In the statistical sense means sometimes we are saying our sample is 5% of our total population, which is statistically viable. Or our sample is, say, 1% of our total population. For example, we have, say, 50,000 population, and it is 500. Okay, our sample size is 500 out of 50,000. So it is one statistical percentage. But in non-probability, it may not be 1% or 5%. It may be 0.01% or something less sometime. First, judgmental sampling or purposive sampling. Under non-probability sampling, okay, one of them is judgmental sampling or purposive sampling. So the researcher use judgment or looking at the purpose relating to their research, and they use this purpose or their own judgment, okay, to make them inclusion or exclusion. So using judgmental or purpose sampling techniques, the researcher decides or makes a judgment about who to include in their research. Okay. So judgment, you are looking at, for example, you are going to the shopping center to have the survey from the shoppers, from the buyers, and you are judging that person is my sample, or that person who I will be collecting data from that person. So from your judgment as a researcher, as a data collector, you are using your own judgment. Or, for example, you are going to the shopping center and you want to collect data from the grocery buyers. Now you are looking at the shopping center and you are looking at the shopping basket or shopping trolley, who have all the grocery items on their basket. You are looking at and you are saying, okay, this person is like fulfilling the purpose of my research, because I am going to do research on the grocery shopping. Okay, and this person's shopping basket is full of the grocery item. Therefore, this person will be my sample or my interviewee or my participant, because it fulfills the purpose of my research. The criteria for inclusion of the research is the capacity of the participants to inform the research. Sometimes we can say, okay, once again, I'm going to the previous example. Say, for example, purpose, who are using the computer software, MyOp or Zero. They will be my sample. They will be my sample, because in my research, it is saying that the employee who have been using computer software, their performance is higher. This is my research title. So to align with my research title or research question, we need to collect the data from those samples who been fulfilling the purpose of my research. Next, quota sampling and convenience sampling. Two sampling technique here. One is quota, another one is convenience. So quota sampling. Let me ask you one question. Everyone please listen. Okay, Shushma, don't sleep. Here, say, for example, we are collecting data from international graduates. We are going to collect data 5% from Chinese students, 5% from Indian students, 5% from Nepalese students, 5% from Filipino students, 5% from Vietnamese students, 5% from Brazilian students, 5% from Mongolian student, 5% from Nigerian student, 5% from Argentine student, okay, 5% from Russian student, 5% from Burkina Faso student. Burkina Faso is a country. 5% from Haiti student. Haiti is a country. Okay. 5% from Bolivian student. Okay, and likewise 5%, 5%, 5%. Now, my question is it okay or not? This is my question. Yes or no? Is it a okay technique or not?
No,
Why not?
because the 5% may not represent the whole population, whole Brazilian population or whole Nepalese population. I don't know. That's my thought.
Answer is somehow correct, but little more explanation could be going. Anyway, thank you. So, say at this moment there are about 600,000 or about 700,000 international students in Australia. Now, out of 700,000, not 5% student coming from China, maybe 25% coming from China, not 5% coming from India, maybe 19% or 17% coming from India, not 5% coming from Nepal, maybe 11% or 12% coming from Nepal, not 5% coming from Burkina Faso, maybe 0.01% coming from Burkina Faso, okay, or not 5% coming from Haiti, maybe 0.0001% coming from Haiti. Therefore, the data or the quota I'm giving, they are not very representative. They are very wrong quota I gave. Therefore, when I will be collecting data, we need to look at their total presence in the total population. According to their presence, we'll be trying to collect data, not from all 200 countries. It's not maybe not possible. Maybe 20 countries. Okay. So we will be collecting data from 20 countries, international students, country of origin, or 30 or 50. But when we'll be collecting, then we'll be giving quota according to their presence. Okay. So this is a quota sampling. Okay. Or for example, we want to collect data from international students. Now we are collecting data, say 20% or 25% from bachelor, 25% from masters, 25% from PhD, 25% from diploma, and 25% from certificate 3. It's not a good quota again. Okay. Here, we need to give more quota for the bachelor student. Then second highest quota for the master's student. Okay. Then third quota can be going to diploma, and fourth quota can be going to research, and last quota can be going to certificate. Okay. So certificate level students are very few. Okay. And also research student is not much. Therefore, according to their presence, we need to give the quota. Okay. So the quota sampling is like that. Using a quota sampling technique, the researcher developed a sample of participants for the research using different quota criteria. So the quota criteria I discussed according to their presence in the total population. Convenience sampling. Okay, easy to understand. Convenience. Okay. So my convenience is to collect data from KY. Or my convenience is to collect data from Sydney. Or my convenience is to collect data from NSW. It is hard or difficult for me to go to Tasmania or to go to Northern Territory in Darwin. Okay. As a student, I do not have budget. I do not have time. Therefore, what is my convenience as a data collector, as a researcher? I will be applying that one. However, we also need to look at the representation. At the same time, we need to look at the representation. If we collect most of the data from KY and from Sydney, it will not be representing. Therefore, convenience sampling is not that much popular. It is not that much popular because there are some narrowness. There is lack of representation in quota sampling. Hence, the quota sampling is not always appreciated or not always accepted. But sometimes, for example, in your case, it is only 12 weeks time. Okay. And for data collection, you may have 2 weeks time only or 1 week time only. Then you can't fly to Northern Territory or parts. Okay. And also there is no budget provided by KY to collect the data. But if you do research, say, for example, PhD, then you can get $5,000 to collect the data. Okay, university provide to every PhD student $5,000 to collect the data, but we are not providing $1 either. Therefore, it's not economically viable, feasible to go and collect the data from other states or other cities. In this case, we may consider convenience sampling. But still, we need to also look at the representation. Snowball sampling, the last one. Snowball sampling. Using a snowball sampling technique, the researcher finds one participant in the research. Then she or he conducts the research with that participant. And then she asks that participant to recommend the next participant. Okay. It is snowball sampling. So the ball going from one to another one. Okay. So Sonakchi is going to, for example, Melbourne to collect data. And Sonakchi found Puput. Oh, Puput, you are here. I am here to collect data. And and Puput says, okay, I'm ready. And then Sonakshi collected data from Puput. And Sonakshi is saying to Puput, Puput, look, I am from Sydney and I am not familiar in Melbourne. I don't know many international graduates here. Can you please help me to find some international graduates? Puput say, oh, yeah. I have some friends who met. I can introduce you to them. And Sonakshi is collecting data from them. And then another person also introducing Sonakshi with men, with Herat, with Pandit, with Swapna. And Sonakshi is collecting data from them one after one. So this is the snowball sampling, specifically when the researcher is new in a area or in a location, then the snowball sampling techniques are used. However, this snowball technique will be very time consuming and also very hard to collect data. Okay, not only time consuming but also very difficult to collect the required number of data. So this is today's lecture. Now I am going to look at your progress relating to the data collection, relating to finalizing the questionnaire. First, who will be, say, boys group, one team. How is going?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How is going with your data collection or questionnaire?
Sir, we will be started. Not yet.
You haven't started yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who?